The Filipino American Cancer Care now brings you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat dito sa Amerika. Good morning, Philippines. Magandang umaga, Pilipinas. It's January, ano na ba? Hindi ko na alam. Basta, buwan ng Pebrero. Buwan ng Enero. It's the month of January. And we would like to acknowledge everyone, especially our station manager from Las Vegas. You know, nasa Las Vegas po tayo. But then at the same time, we're broadcasting in Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia, all over the United States, all over the world, all over the universe. Welcome on our radio show, On the Air with FACC, Filipino American Cancer Care. And I'm Josie Moralidad Azayman. Siyempre, kasama natin yung ating beloved Machete from the heart of Maryland. Emmerich Richie Vicente. Hi, Emmerich.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. To all of our listeners here in the U.S. Magandang umaga po sa inyo dyan sa Pilipinas. Thank you so much for all of you tuning today because we have a very good, I think we're going to have a very interesting and very good conversation. It's a mix of both, right?
Yes.
It's going to be a real story, could be a love story too, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited.
But we're only gonna have the commander-in-chief.
Oh, okay.
So Emmerich, you know, I'm glad today I have my voice back. I was really suffering from this inflammation of my vocal cords. You know, sometimes I could not talk, and I didn't know na meron ka rin pala. You also have that?
Yeah, I do. And so my situation though is with the inflammation, I can't eat anything citrus, anything with acidic.
Acid, yeah.
It hurts so badly.
Oh, do you have acid reflux?
So I guess I do.
Oh, you have not done any endoscopy?
No. So today, you know, when I went to my the specialist, oh my God, that thing with the camera.
Oh my gosh. I had that.
I was like, what the heck?
We have to ask our guest tonight if he has, you know, if he had ever done that. My gosh. I had that last week, Emmerich, and now I'm into nasal spray.
Uh-huh.
And I have to drink like 3 liters of water every day because it's been like a month. I'm glad today, you know, I was about to call again the doctor because I've been suffering. And I know when I had that COVID, it was really bad. But this time it was so bad.
Yeah.
And my doctor was like, you know, you have a history of cancer. Want to make sure you don't have nodules. You don't have this, you don't have that. But the thing that they put in your nose going to your throat is unbelievable.
Yeah. It goes back down.
Yes.
But I guess because you and my job talks a lot to the public, and you do as well. So I guess this is what it is.
Well, I've been talking on the radio for, you know, more than, 3 decades now, 30 years, because I started on the radio since I was 20 years old. And then there was a time, Emmerich, you know, when I was like in my 20s, I would talk in front of the microphone without anybody, just the wall, for 3 hours. Kaya, that's why if you're gonna allow me to talk, Emmerich, I can talk.
It's so true.
It's not easy to talk when you don't read.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you?
You have to speak about whatever comes up in your mind.
Yes.
But you have to stay in topic.
That's right. By the way, before we introduce our special guest tonight, we would like to take this opportunity to invite everyone. You know, Emmerich, have you heard about David Pomeranz?
Yes, I have.
Anong kanta na gustuhan mo? What kind of song do you like from him?
Oh my God. I don't remember the titles. Every single time I listen to it, I was like, that's David Pomeranz.
Yung ano, You're the king and queen of hearts.
I love that one.
I like that song. Maybe the old songs
It's
Really.
some of the Barry Manilow
Yes,
songs,
because
right,
he's not
Christine?
only as David Pomeranz is not just an iconic singer, but
Right,
he is also a songwriter,
right.
and he wrote songs for the Queens. Yeah,
Aha.
I think ang dami pa. There are so many songs. So March 8, 2025, he's going to have concert for Filipino American Cancer Care,
That's right.
and we're not gonna have those yung mga sinasabi nilang front acts. It's not because we don't like front acts, but we have our own singers and music ambassadors for
Exactly.
FACC. You remember no October, 'di ba? We have soprano Kay Habana, tenor Alan Chan, Dave Valeriano,
David
Katrina.
Valeriano, Katrina Manaba.
Yes. This
We
time
also have the
around, they're
uh
going to have a duet with David
nice,
Pomeranz. O, di ba?
nice.
Maganda. Just to raise funds for our beneficiaries. And Emerich is the MC.
Yes,
Maganda
ma'am.
ka, Emerich, ah.
So March 8th at 5 p.m. That's a Saturday. Please do not forget to get your tickets. You can get some of the information on our Facebook page, of course. It's gonna be at the Aria Restaurant and Banquet in Sterling, Virginia. So while the tickets is still available, I know it's gonna sold out again. All of our stuff are selling out because it's for a good cause.
Yes. And it's 125 with buffet dinner. Not
That's
only
really good.
Filipino food, but Mediterranean and American food. Okay? And it's a very nice restaurant, a banquet hall. It's not actually like a restaurant. It's a
Yeah,
party room. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And then we're going to have a great time. We're going to celebrate the colorectal cancer awareness month. Of course, yung ating bisita, our guest tonight, is a cancer survivor. And which I think we have to introduce him now because we have so
Okay,
many things to talk about. He's worried
absolutely.
that we're not going to talk anything for 1 hour. He's going to be surprised. We're going to he's going to run out of answers.
We'll see. We'll see. So I'll go ahead and it's an honor to introduce our special guest today. Tonight we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Thomas Goeller. He graduated summa cum laude with distinction from James Madison. Is it college or university, Doc?
It was actually a college when I graduated. It was a
Oh,
university the next year.
I
Mm.
see. Okay.
I
And
really
earn,
look up on people with a summa cum laude.
I know.
Magna
Yeah,
cum laude. Because it's not easy to study.
it's not easy. And he earned his doctorate in business information systems and quantitative analysis from Mississippi State University. As a, as a university professor, he teaches business production and operations research, emphasizing in simulations modeling. Dr. Goller is also an Army Reserve engineering officer with the Corps of Engineers. Thank you, sir, for your service. Headquartered in Contingency Operations Unit and has been deployed 5 times. Oh, that's something that we can talk about tonight. He works as a defense consultant, determining facility requirements in potential war zones and peacetime military bases, and is married to the beautiful and talented Marcy Balahadia Goeller. Tom supports cancer research in 2 areas: um, how a type of cancer starts, and research that would provide annual checkups to identify cancer as its first occurrence. Tom's first wife died of brain cancer. They have no idea how it started, and there was no cure. And that's
Okay.
how she passed away. So please welcome Dr. Thomas Gollard.
Hi,
Tom.
Tom. Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Tom, do you know how to speak Filipino now?
No, I
I
know a
love
few
it.
words.
Very honest.
Anako and
Mhm.
Mahalkita.
There you
The
go.
only words that my husband learned, or learn from Filipinos are, hay nako, oh my. When he's upset, hay nako.
I picked that one up quick.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah?
it's easy. How about when you're upset with your wife?
I just keep my mouth shut.
You think that when you married a Filipina will just follow you? It's a different story, Tom.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
back up my husband.
that's very true, right?
They did not realize that Filipinas are more stubborn than American. Is that right,
It's
Tom?
they always they have this saying that
Mhm.
uh
Filipino
you
women, yes, go ahead,
you must
Emerich.
be you could be the head of the family, but I am the neck. I can turn your head wherever.
Tom, do you believe that Filipino women are actually very strong-willed?
Oh, definitely.
Hindi ko na, I did not say stubborn.
Strong-willed woman.
Uh, yeah, it's
It's what? It's a
what do I
miracle?
say? Not a whole lot of filters sometimes.
There's no filter.
Run out.
Yes.
Mm,
So anyway, I will shoot the first question, Emmerich. I hope I'm not gonna lose my voice
I hope
because
not.
the problem with us, I guess, Emmerich, is not only that we're talking.
We
We're
laugh and
making
everything.
everybody laugh. Okay, even if there's nothing funny, Tom, I just keep on laughing, and that exerts a lot of effort. Anyway, Tom, you graduated with high honors. I'm very proud of you. And it's so nice to talk to somebody who graduated with high honor, especially from James Madison College here in the US. How did that experience help shape the way you teach and do things in life?
Well, James Madison, if the history of it is, it was a women's teaching college
Mhm.
for many, many years. And then 1960s, they started letting men there. And, for me, it was a good school, close to home.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I was accepted to other schools, but it was so much more friendly there at Madison. And one of the advantages I had was, as opposed to being extremely rigorous academics, it allowed more freedom where you could, do some of your own studies and things like that. I was really good at math. And at the time, they were installing computer systems. That's how old I am. And
Don't
they
age
use
yourself.
students. They use students to run the computer systems. So that wasn't what I wanted to do in life, but I ended up doing it so I could make some money. And I would have never been able to do that going into, a University of Virginia or William and Mary or something. So it worked out, and I met my first wife there, so that helped also.
So
Yeah.
you're a native of Virginian.
Yep, I
Yeah.
was born in Washington D.C., and my family lived in Northern Virginia all their life.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't travel or anything else.
Have
Mm-hmm.
you visited the James Madison University these days? The area?
Oh yeah, I've for years we used to have season football tickets, and went there all the time. In fact, my kids got so bored they refused to go there for their college degree because basically we can go there so often. It's a beautiful campus.
It
I've
is.
got to recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
Like I said, it has come a long way since it used to be considered a teaching college, and
Right.
um, like I said, there's a lot more flexibility there, I think, than going to a Virginia Tech or a UVA. You've got more options there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go ahead and ask another question, just kind of follow up continuation of your life in after James Madison. When did you join the um,
Military?
Corps of Engineer?
Okay. After school, I had a couple jobs.
Oh,
When I graduated, the economy was not great. I went into retailing for a while. Then I went into life insurance sales, and I made enough in life insurance sales. You get renewals each year, so I made enough
right.
for the renewals to cover me for my master's degree at Virginia Tech and my doctorate at Mississippi State.
I see.
I just didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. So the military thing, and I'll try to be as short as I can on this, but
Wait a minute, Tom. You told us you did not really accomplish anything. Think about it. You earned doctorate in business information systems
I'm
and
getting there.
quantitative analysis. You know, when I was
There's a lot
studying,
more,
yes,
apparently.
and
Yeah,
Rich, when I
well,
was studying MBA, that quantitative analysis, oh my gosh, don't ask me about that.
what I meant was after James Madison.
Yeah.
After James Madison, I was going through, and while I was getting my doctorate degree,
Yeah.
we were raising two children. I guess we're raising three children at one point. And a cousin of mine, or an aunt, I guess, was doing research on our family history. And she wrote and told me I would have been the first male since the French and Indian Revolution, French and Indian War in America, which was the early 1700s, to not be in the military.
Oh, wow.
And it sort of got me thinking, and I thought, gee, when I grew up, we weren't against the military, but my dad went through World War II, his brothers and everybody else.
Yeah.
So basically our thought was if you went in the military, you couldn't do anything else.
Mhm.
That's where you defaulted. But, I don't know how the Corps of Engineers found out about me, but somehow I ended up agreeing to enlisting with a unit in Vicksburg, Mississippi, a reserve unit, and they needed somebody to install a computer system in their building, which had never been done before on an
Mhm.
off-base unit. So, I joined, and they promised me some things, and it worked out really well. It was, but I blame my aunt for getting me into the military. So I was 28 when I joined, commissioned when I was 31. And, it was an exciting career. My modeling and simulation, that's basically what I did in the military, was model engineering effort needed for a future war. And that was exciting. I enjoyed doing that. Traveled a lot. The unit I was with was very exciting. It was a 2-star command. It was the only command reserve unit and a National Guard unit that had what was called 72 hours wheels up. So when we got notified, we would be in an airplane to the war zone within 3 days. Wow. And we would practice that every year. I was very fortunate to be able to travel all around Europe for my exercises and things. Actually traveled to Taiwan and Korea, but never the Philippines or any place exciting.
Never been in the Philippines, but got married with a Filipina.
Well, eventually, yes.
Tom, again, you've been deployed 5 times,
Right.
in your military career. What have those experiences taught you about, human relationships, of course, making decisions and leadership?
Well, the key to being deployed is being ready and making sure your family's ready for it. It's very difficult for the spouse because then the spouse has to take care of the family. And one of the things that they ask the spouses to do is not tell the people in the military the problems they're having back home, because when you're deployed, you're worried about your soldiers and everything, and they don't want you worried about your family. So they try to make sure there's no problems at home. The military tries to do a big deal with that. So, as far as being deployed, my deployments were basically, we were contingency response unit. And that meant that if something went bad, you got deployed.
Yeah.
So, we were one of the first units to go during Desert Storm in 1990. And I was the liaison to General Schwarzkopf's staff. Got to work with him. I managed some people that actually built his headquarters building in Riyadh when the war was finished. We helped redeploy all the soldiers. So you end up working with a lot of different people. What was funny was that because I had started in a headquarters unit with lots of colonels and lots of generals and very few enlisted younger soldiers, when I was activated for Bosnia, I ended up dealing with a lot of 18-year-olds, and I never dealt with that before. That was sort of interesting. But, once again, it was one of those things you go because there was a problem. And, you manage several professionals. Going to Iraq, the idea was to set up the Corps of Engineer facilities and locations, 4 places. So I had 30 civilians and several military that we had to make sure got taken care of. So, the thing about being deployed is you're working 7 hours a day, 12, 14 hours a day. And, one thing that is interesting, I think, even for your show, is at one point on one of my activations, before you come back home, they always take your blood pressure and make sure you're okay. And my blood pressure was it was off the wall, and I've never had problems with blood pressure. And they said, don't worry about it. You've been under a lot of pressure and you just don't know it. 2 weeks from now, you'll be fine. And so by the time I got home, 2 weeks later, you get to see the doctor and my blood pressure is perfectly fine. So from that point on, I knew blood pressure, is a silent killer, I guess is the easiest way to put it, because I had been deployed for 9 months and did not realize how bad my blood pressure was. And like I said, they said, you just don't understand how bad it can be when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
And, once you can calm down after that. But, from a leadership standpoint, you just, being a military leader, the people have to listen to you more or do more than they do as a civilian. That's a thing that you have to get used to when you're a program manager like I am now for civilian contracts.
So you still work?
I wasn't planning on it, but a friend of mine called back and asked if I'd managed some projects around the United States for him. That just happened in December. So, yeah, I had officially retired about a year and a half ago. But a friend of mine, actually from the reserves, knew me, and he had an issue and called me up and said, could I work part-time and manage some projects for him?
Yeah. I have a question regarding the simulation project that you've done in the military. Have you, is any of those projects that you dealt with are still being used or utilized in the...
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
By the way, what is simulation and modeling?
Well, think about rolling dice. You don't know exactly how the outcome is going to occur, so you use probability to figure out what's going to happen. So, the one I originally worked on was the Russians coming across the Fulda Gap in Germany, which we always expected them to come through there. So the simulation that I dealt with, which is still being prepared for any future war, I mean, that's what we do, is we prepare for wars. That's why we're so good at it.
Oh my gosh, your expertise, I guess Emmerich, they still need him.
They got people that can do it. But the idea is, when you send troops to war, they're going to need facilities to live in. You're going to need barracks, you're going to need hospitals, you're going to need maintenance facilities. So what we would do is we would sit there and say, okay, if the bad guys come over, what facilities do we need? And then you have engineers. You got to understand the military wants to send the killers over first. So they want to send the 101st Airborne and all the 1st Cav and everybody else first. But, they need people to go through bridges. They need people to build barracks and things for them. So what we do is we figure out, okay, when do engineers need to get in the scheme of things to be able to make sure that they can support all these soldiers. And, most people don't realize for every one soldier that's shooting rifles, there's 10 people behind the scenes supporting them. And so, my thing was to model different scenarios of how the war might start, how it might evolve, and then figure out facilities later on in the scenario, like after day 5 or day 6. Can engineers build the refugee camps or the prisoner of war camps that are going to be needed? When we were doing Desert Storm, if anybody goes over the history, we ended up with a lot of prisoners the first day. And it was like, how do you deal with all these prisoners when the fighting people are still wanting to move forward and you got to take care of all these prisoners? So, building a 10, 15,000 prisoner camp in one day is something that we'd have to plan for.
Yeah.
As far as, simulating might go on the home field, which is what I dealt with for a few years, is Fort Bliss might not want the missile defense anymore in Texas. They want to move it to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So how do you build all the facilities in Fort Sill to support all the new troops coming in and all the new events you're going to have? So that's the facility planning we do.
Wow.
And I want to even take it a little further, which is, something that I think is interesting, is you have to decide which buildings you don't want bombed, because you may be going into that area and you want that maintenance facility, or you want that building as a hospital. So please do not bomb that building. And so you tell the Pentagon, these are the facilities we'd like to make sure remain. And when I went to Iraq the day after Baghdad fell, and I was in Baghdad the day after it fell, it was nice seeing the we wanted were still there. And next door, the buildings didn't exist.
Wow. Anyway, let's go to your cancer diagnosis, because I know, or we know, you have had a personal experience with cancer. Can you share your journey and how it has impacted your life, the word cancer? Because we understand your wife also was diagnosed and passed away from cancer.
Okay, well, I still have cancer. So what we're doing is we're monitoring it right now. So
What cancer? What type of cancer?
I have a prostate cancer.
Okay.
Typically is a very slow-moving cancer, and many men die long before that cancer ever causes a problem. So given that background, the history which I can give you is never had any health problems. I don't take any meds now. They started a PSA testing. In the old days, they used to do a digital test in the rectum and say, gee, the prostate's not growing, so you never worried about it. So apparently, as the years passed, they come up with this thing called a PSA test.
It's like a blood work.
Yeah. And apparently, if it's over 4, they think you've got a problem. So in June of 2021, I had a 5.3. And they said, you ought to get it checked out. And I didn't worry about it. In 2022, in June, I had a 4.7.
And so you use your mathematical skills.
Well, I'm looking at it and I'm asking, does anybody have a history of it in my family? Nobody did. And, so my prostate supposedly is a little large. But once again, no other health problems. All right. So in August, because somebody got nervous about it, 2022, which we will say I was meeting that Filipino lady.
Oh, Marcy, and that was the time.
And so she said,
you were meeting her.
You got to get it taken care of.
Okay.
Because my wife had passed away in 2020. So I wasn't too worried about,
That was during the COVID when you lost your first wife?
Yeah, she was diagnosed in December of 19 and then passed away in April of 2020. So yes, it was COVID.
Oh my gosh, that was very short.
Well, hers was, I never remember the name, glioblastoma or something. It's something that goes across the brain very quickly, and they don't know what started it.
Wow.
And they're only given a 3 to 6 month time
Well,
to live.
before we continue about your cancer diagnosis, take us back, with the cancer journey of your first wife.
Okay. Basically the first time we knew about it, which, we can go back and say, okay, this must have been a sign of it, was I got off an airplane from a trip and she didn't pick me up. And I kept calling and saying, what's happening? And finally I had to call my son to come pick me up. And we got home and she was in bed and she just didn't think about it or anything. So, we didn't think much about it then. Then we had trouble getting her to even show up to we had planned to get her to my daughter's college graduation. And once again, she wasn't ready for it. I had to go home and get her all dressed up and ready for it and everything. So, we at church, we basically asked some people, is there any issues here? And they finally said, yeah, we think so. So we went to a doctor and she started complaining about a backache or something. And the doctor made the wrong diagnosis. Went another week or so. And I finally said, hey, something else is going on. So they did an x-ray of her brain, and the lady called us immediately that night and said, you need to take her to the hospital. Took her to the hospital. This was like right before Christmas. And, they opened up her head and took out some of the cancer and said, it doesn't look good, but we'll, take a good test and things like this.
How old was she at the time?
Let's see. She would have been 60. Let's see, 19. She'd have been 63. I'll have to think about it.
Middle 60s.
Yeah, she was young. 63. Anyway, so, actually when they removed it from her brain, she was a lot better. I mean, she went through some therapy, but rehab, walking and things like this, but she was actually much better than she'd been for weeks. And then they did radiation, trying to see if that would help. We were actually trying to hope that I had two of my children were having babies, so we were hoping that she could last to be able to be there for the children, birth of the children, but that didn't happen. Anyway, what happened was she got worse and worse, and then they put her in the hospital. They couldn't give her anything because her white blood cell was way, way down, and they kept giving her blood transfusions all day, trying to get it up before they could do some other treatment. And it was obvious she wasn't recovering at all. So we finally got the doctor in there, and I said, can you do anything? And they said, well, we can't really take x-rays of the brain because the radiation, blah, 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 it'll flood it. I said, well, you need to do that. So they did. And they said, oh, well, what they could see was the cancer had expanded a whole lot more than it had ever been, even with the radiation therapy. So we literally just decided to bring her home at that point, and she passed away within about 3 or 4 days. But it was challenging because she, like I said, it's 2020. So she'd have been 62 when she passed.
So how did that experience change your perspective on life?
Well, hard to talk about it right now, but basically I wasn't worried about anything at that point. Had no plans for the future. I'd lost my spouse, and we had basically been at a point where this is the time when we're going to retire and enjoy our lives and things. So I'll admit, I didn't really care about anything at that point. Why are you working? Do you need any money? No, I could just keep working. I didn't have any goals or anything else. Nobody to take care of, didn't need to care for anybody else. So I was just sort of floating around, still working a little bit. Well, actually, I was working. That was what was, I guess, keeping me busy. But yeah, I took my children to basically say, Dad, we need to find somebody for you. And that's how it ended up. I can go into that story too if you want, but yeah, it was, I just didn't really care anymore what happened. I figured I'd lived a good life and my spouse was gone and had no plans for the future really.
Before you met your Filipino wife, Marcy, how did you manage during those difficult times?
Uh, I just went to work, although it was COVID, so I was working at home. The story is I was a dog person. We had been raising puppies anyway, so I had 8 dogs, and basically just took care of them. Walked down to the beach back and forth, and I was actually thinking of getting a beachfront property and just being a beach bum the rest of my life. So I sort of looked at some places on the North Carolina coastline, but yeah, no real exotic things of, oh, gee, I want to do all these things for the church or anybody else. I just hate to say I'd sort of given up, but it was just, I was existing at that point.
By yourself?
By myself, yeah. My kids were good. We had dinner with them every Friday.
But it's different. How long were you married with your first wife?
Almost 44 years.
Oh my gosh, a marriage. Can you believe that? I'm sure they had a wonderful life together.
We met my freshman year at college, and then got married immediately afterwards. 2 weeks after I graduated.
Wow! And how many children?
5.
5.
We had 5 children. That was her. All she wanted in life was children. She loved babies.
Yeah.
So
how many girls and how many boys?
Boy, girl, boy. No, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl.
Ah, okay. My parents, there's 5 of us, and it's the opposite. It's the other way around. Boy, girl, boy, girl, boy.
Yeah.
And boy and girl. So Tom, was she also a professor like you?
She was an early childhood teacher because
that's why she loves
children.
Kids.
She loved children, right?
And same thing with your second wife, Marcy.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yep.
Okay, Emma Rich, you have more questions when it comes to Tom's
I wanted
diagnosis.
to kind of go back, to Tom, to your diagnosis for your cancer journey.
Right.
Because my uncle had one, late uncle, and when did you find that out, and how was your reaction when the doctor said something to you about it?
Well, like I said, just to sort of finish off the story, and I had an MRI in August of 2022. Marcy, got real worried about it and everything. Yeah. So the doctor said, and it was RPADS 5, which supposedly is very highly likely that you could have cancer present.
Yeah.
And once again, I figure what happens is what happens. If God wants me now, he'll have me now. If he doesn't.
Yeah.
So the doctor did a biopsy, which they came back and said, okay, you've got a high risk, average risk given your normal health. Now it was listed as genomic risk intermediate, which they say is not ideal for active surveillance. But then it goes on to say, average risk giving a healthy person. And like I said, I have no other healthy problems. My blood pressure's unbelievably low.
Yeah.
For most people, things like this. So I told her, I said, no, the doctor, I said, I'm just going to, I'm going to do the surveillance because, everything I read about what they can do for your prostate can definitely have an impact on your future well-being.
That's right.
Quality of life. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I really want to do that? Unless I absolutely have to, because, I got it. And once again,
what
what happened was June of 23, we had another PSA that went down to 4.3.
Okay.
In November, went down to 3.8. So, what's happening here? May this year went to 4.31. The doctor asked for another MRI. The little module or whatever they said went from 1.5 by 0.8 centimeters to 1.6.
I think you're using quantitative analysis here.
Analysis. That's exactly what's happening right now.
So anyway, the idea that a doctor wants to immediately do all kinds of stuff to your body, that I'm sitting there thinking this can have real damaging results.
Yeah.
I thought I want another person to look at this, and we moved to Florida. And I guess I talked to my regular doctor, and she basically was, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And so we have a Mayo Clinic in Florida. They do research.
That's right.
It's not just a doctor doing things. So I went to them just a week or two ago, and we're going to do an MRI and another biopsy in the end of February. So that's where we are right now. In fact, he did what I probably hadn't had done in 5 or 6 years, which was the digital exam. And he said, your prostate doesn't even feel large to me. So, but he said, since we've already got the MRI and we've already got the results, let's go ahead and do another MRI. So we're going to do that in February, and then a biopsy again. And he says that's what you do during the surveillance and see what happens. And
that's what a surveillance is. So for our listeners too, for education portion of it, this is a different kind of looking into this situation, because otherwise, surgery, or remove, all of the things that we know about cancer, but yours it's different.
Still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. You're studying it. You consulted another doctor in a research type of setting, and then this is a completely different outcome. Now,
that's why it's always important to have a second opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason that I really wanted a second opinion in a research place was when we took my wife in, they said, she's too far gone. She's not a candidate for research. And I thought, come on, you can do research on anybody.
Right.
So you're talking about your first wife.
I'm talking about my first wife, and that really irritated me that they didn't even want to do anything. And, we called a couple other hospitals. They said, no, we really can't do anything. So I figure if I start with the Mayo Clinic, they're already doing research. It's not going to hurt them.
They're already in the middle of it.
Right.
So I was curious, going through the surveillance of the process that you're going through, and then all of a sudden you got this opinion. It's like, I don't. It seems like it's not that big anyway. But how do you feel? Because we should know our body, like your energy level, you.
Do you have anxiety when it comes to this?
I personally don't. My wife does.
I have anxiety.
Which is, I understand her situation, and we'll take care of it because of her. I mean, she's my reason for living now. So that's, basically, we'll take care of it at that point. Me personally, it's like I said, if God's ready for me, God's ready for me.
But my question for you, Tom, are you proactive when it comes to your health?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had any health problems. And of course, Marcy makes sure I get a ton of vitamins, which I never took before. And she cooks proper meals to make sure I eat properly and everything. But, I don't do anything negative to my health. I've never smoked, never taken drugs. Occasionally I have a drink for a meal once a week. So all those things basically take care of me. My weight is, reasonable for somebody my age and not overweight.
Blood pressure, sugar level.
My blood pressure is like 112/67. And, blood sugar and all that, very low. And I have a lot of family background with diabetes, but I've never had any issues with it. So
congratulations.
But yeah, I don't eat a lot of candy or anything else, and Marcy's good with that. She's much more she is much more on top of health, and because of that, I'm also following what she does.
Sure.
So she's the one making sure I'm taken care of.
So my next question, having experienced, both the personal and professional sides of cancer, what do you think, needs to change in how we approach cancer treatment? And of course, we're talking about early detection.
Well, we have the early detection, I guess, with the PSA because the digital obviously wouldn't have found it at all. So that's an advantage. The early detection, I guess detecting it's good, but the question still remains: where does it come from? How does it start? Do we have any idea why certain men have this and certain don't? Of course, a huge proportion of men get prostate cancer.
Just like women, a large proportion of women are getting breast cancer.
Right, exactly. So and the thing is that you're probably going to find out there's a whole lot of different little types of breast cancer, a whole bunch of different little types of prostate cancer. And he was telling me, he said, we got to monitor it because we know it's there because, 50% of them are aggressive. So that means 50% aren't. So who knows? And like I said, the research, one is how do you, take care of it when it's actually there? The other research is how can we find out where it's starting from and, try to make sure that it doesn't come out there.
At Inova Hospital, I guess Emerich, they have this program that you can also participate, like in their clinical studies, like every month you have to submit your blood work.
Yeah.
For them, because I think right now, because of the advancement in terms of cancer treatments, they do a lot of these clinical studies.
That's good. And is that ongoing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Tom, of course, cancer is a cancer. We don't want to be like, it's better to do something than be sorry, right?
Exactly.
That's why we're doing a lot of this stuff. And as they said, early detection can save lives.
Right.
Now, my next question is, what does cancer, what did you learn from cancer?
Well, the thing is, you're not going to live forever. And, the cancer could make that, a shorter time frame than you'd like it to be. The thing with the prostate cancer is there's so many different ways they can take care of it.
And it's one of the most treatable form of cancers.
Yeah. I mean, they can remove the prostate. They can do
radiation.
They can
hormone therapy.
Yeah, they can put something in you that's radiation oriented. They have a little thing they can inject in you to accomplish the same thing. They can try to scrape it out. They can do all kinds of things. So there's so many different options. And once again, you read the options and it's like, okay, which one of these least is going to accomplish the task and then is going to not cause a quality of life issue. So that's sort of my concern. And I'll admit the Mayo Clinic, I'll probably go with whatever they recommend. It's been a couple of years. It's still bumping along. It did grow a little bit. So, and that's why he said we need to check it. So
when are you going to find out?
Well, the biopsy will be done the end of February. So however long it takes for them to come up with the results after they do the biopsy. I know when they did the biopsy at Inova, she sent it to California
Mm-hmm.
and waited.
I
I don't
heard
know.
something about that, they would send all these biopsies, Emmerich, in California.
Yeah.
Right, and it took several weeks before we ever got the results back. And
That's right.
I mean, there were like 17 injections or biopsy pins they checked in my body, and each one of them they diagnosed as to what the probability was or what the result was from each one of those injections. I don't know if Mayo can do it locally or whether they have to send it to California too, but it is what it is. We'll find out.
Last question. Are you afraid of cancer?
I guess if I don't do anything and it really starts to hurt, that would be what I'd be afraid of, is if there's something that, really starts causing you pain and suffering. So that's sort of, to me, the trade-off is, do I somehow survive 25 years and not have any issues? Or do I get do whatever it is they say to do, radiation or, removal or whatever. And then for the next 10, 15, 20 years, I have a different quality of life because of the operation. I mean, that's really what my thought process is. But once again, we're getting down to, I've got the Mayo Clinic, which I think does current research. Before I went to them, I was researching all the doctors there and the research they were doing on it. So I figure they're as current on it as anybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Emmerich, we have 3 minutes on our radio show.
I do
Can
not
you
have
believe
any
that, Tom? You're
question.
telling me,
See,
what
Tom?
are we going to talk? We have more things to talk.
Well, I mean, it's wonderful that you're doing this. And I think, Marcy got me involved with all the Filipino charities and everything. And you're one of the main ones that she loves to be involved with. And, the idea is, you mentioned about going to the show, supporting you that way. I think that's important. Marcy's tracking people in the Philippines that have cancer. And, let's face it, cancer is one of the bigger killers out there, and we have to take care of it and make sure that somebody's doing research. And I applaud you for doing these kinds of things and keeping it open. And, we love going to all your events and trying to get more people involved in them to bring in more money. Yeah.
Did you have a great time last October?
Of course we did. We always loved those.
Did you like
events.
the food?
I've gotten very used to, and I do like a lot of the different Filipino foods. I grew up from a Pennsylvania background, which was meat and potatoes. And so fish is not something that's been tremendously on my diet, but has had to be because of my new culture that I'm involved with.
Yeah. No, thank you for your support all this time. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you're able to join us and share some of the knowledge, your experience, your background, your life story to all of our listeners, followers.
Thank you.
And Emmerich, I'm going to call him after this. Tom, if you don't mind, I don't know if I have your number, but please email it to me as soon as possible. I have a proposal for him, Emmerich, for our March 8th event. All right? So lastly, Tom, what would you like to say to everybody watching us right now?
Please support the Filipino American Cancer Care Unit. And, anybody that that has cancer, give them lots of hugs and, keep the faith. There's always research going on that'll help the future. But once again, understand that God's going to determine what you want. And, if it gets bad, God will take care of you.
There you go, or Summa Cum Laude. Tom Goeller. Thank you so much, and Emmerich.
No, thank you so much, and have a good evening, everyone. Thank you again, Tom, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Send our regards to Marcy.
Will do.
Yes. Thank you so much to all our followers, donors, supporters, sponsors, and volunteers. All the men and women behind the Filipino American Cancer Care. Thank you so much for being with us on our radio show here in Las Vegas, PHLV Radio, on the air with FACC, Filipino American Cancer Care. Bye!
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
The Filipino American Cancer Care has just brought you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.